with Mao Zedong's Communist Party's rise to power in China in 1949, the official state religion became atheism. During the Cultural Revolution from 1966 to 1972, what was left of religious institutions was closed and religious practices became illegal. Cultural memories are long. However, particularly in a culture as old as China's, and when the country opened once again the doors to Western influence, traditions planted by Christian missionaries in the mid-1800s quickly began to sprout forth. Christians had, and still do, conduct secret services in people's homes. But in 1979, when President Carter convinced Chinese leaders to relax restrictions, they once again allowed older churches to open up with the condition that they pledge allegiance to the Chinese government and avoid political activism. With atheism being taught in school, no doubt Chinese leaders assumed that what remained of Christianity would slowly wither away, as it seems to be doing in the West. But deny people a thing and they wanted even more. And so now lines are long to get into these churches. And the discouraged private services continue to grow as well, with the surprising results being that the number of Christians in China may well outnumber the Communist Party's membership. The reaction to this has been to return to the repressive past, with churches being closed in some cases or having their attention getting crosses removed on the pretext that they represent a driving hazard to nearby highways. If the past is any indication, Chinese officials will have to enact even stronger crackdowns until all expression of religion is once again suppressed, or continue to simply persecute those who wish to practice their faith, and possibly watch as these numbers grow even faster, though in secrecy. The danger for the Chinese government is that this approach will breed resentment, which can manifest itself in other ways, such as overt political activity, protest marches, and so on. One might conclude that the Chinese leadership has painted itself into a corner, or another way to put it, with respect to religious freedoms, they are damned if they do and damned if they don't. Members of a branch of Christianity which formed in Egypt as early as 1st century BC and flourished to become a majority of Egyptians around 400 AD until the Muslim invasion of the country in the 10th century are known as Copts, or Coptic Christians. To this day, they still represent a sizable minority of the people in Egypt, even though they are regularly mistreated by the government. In other countries of the region, Christians of any kind are even less welcome. As with many nations that have positive relations, workers may migrate from one country to another just for the duration of a particular work-related activity. And so it was a surprise when 13 Copts were suddenly detained while doing work in Libya. Much of the work done in that country by temporary workers from Egypt consists of construction labor, and before Muammar Gaddafi was deposed, this was a routine part of the exchange of goods and services between the two countries. With Gaddafi out of the picture, however, it is often more difficult to know who is in control of a particular area. Multiple claims were made about the detention of 13 workers in the city of Sirte at the beginning of the year, and while they have now, it is believed, been freed, it is still uncertain why they are detained or who detained them. The two prevailing explanations are that they were either detained by Islamic militants or possibly by people smugglers. It is also not clear whether there was a ransom payment made by local officials to avoid escalation of the controversy, or whether some other demands were made and met. After an earthquake killed more than 200,000 people in Haiti on January 12, 2010, those who survived were understandably in shock. Some still experience mental trauma to this day, but in a country with a history of mysticism, such claims are risky to make public. Fearing that they might be labeled insane by modern doctors and institutionalized, as has happened in recent times, people turn instead to voodoo priests or witch doctors for help. There are a few practitioners of modern mental health in Haiti, but not nearly enough to cope with the country's population of over 10 million. So as a practical matter, since the population is unlikely to use terms such as depression to describe their feelings, doctors have devised a screening process that looks for changes in eating and sleeping habits, malaise, or loss of appetite as signs of what might not be entirely physical ailments. Since primitive practices such as voodoo are still widely employed in Haiti, medical professions have turned to these practitioners for help and are attempting to teach them modern ways of detecting and dealing with such symptoms, rather than just sacrificing animals or blaming the condition on evil spirits as they might otherwise do. There are signs of progress, and importantly, patients are learning that they can open up their feelings without fear of being locked away by medical professionals, while at the same time, if they do avail themselves of the traditional methods, they may receive more appropriate treatments.